Hello and good morning. It's nice to be with you once again. Now, first of all, my apologies for Mike Nimmy not being with us, and maybe pass on all our good wishes to him because his relative isn't well. He's still down in Cornwall, and let's hope she's better soon, and he'll be back with us. But at any rate, what I thought I'd talk about today is photography, because everybody today uses photography. We've all got our mobiles out. You go anywhere, you see people snapping away with their mobiles. In fact, Paul was saying, our wonderful cameraman, I might say, he was just saying how when you go anywhere, you see dozens of people all with their mobiles out taking pictures. And of course, this is a wonderful thing, but it makes me think a bit of how photography has developed. Because I go back, I'm 90 now, so I go back a long way, but I go back to the plate cameras, and you don't realise what a burden they were. If you think today you can take as many pictures as you want, if you want to take 50 pictures, it's there for you, and you don't have to do anything except click the shutter and have it. But in my day, you had to have all these plate cameras. If they were exposed, the glass plate was exposed to the light, they were ruined, so you had to always make sure they were absolutely covered and cared for, and you couldn't open them by accident. You could only open them when you put them into the camera. And you put this great big plate, you had to have half plate and full plate. Not many people had a full plate, that was the professional, but the half plate was about that big, I think. But, excuse me, it was a terrible thing, and the work that was involved. Then when you'd taken your 3 or 4 pictures, so in other words, the actual taking of the pictures was very important, because you couldn't sort of say, well, I'll take that again, because you only had 3 or 4 plates with you, so you were stymied. Not like today, you can take as many as you want. But then you had to take these plates back to the darkroom. Once again, you couldn't expose them to the light. You could only have this very, very little light in the darkroom, a red light, which was very carefully done. Then you take the plates out, then you had to put them first of all into a developer, the liquid which developed them. Then you had to wash them, so you had to have another tray which had clean water in it, so you washed the plate, and then you had to fix it, in other words to keep the image there, so you had to put yet another dish into that with the fixer in it, and then after that you had to put it into a clear water again to wash it, and then you had to dry it. So the process of doing just one photograph was absolutely unbelievable. You just couldn't imagine the work of it. So of course then when they discovered film, what a relief that was. And of course there were different sizes of film. There was the 620 film, which was a bigger one. And there was then they brought out the 35mm film, which was absolutely incredible. You could do 36 pictures on a row of film, but the trouble with developing it and printing it, excuse me, used to have little tanks, used to wind the film into the tank, and of course, once you'd taken the pictures, it couldn't be exposed to light. So you couldn't work except in a dark room or somewhere where light couldn't get at you. And the problem with it, and then you had to develop it in the little tank. Once again, the 3 things, you had to develop it, wash it, fix it, and then wash it again. You've no conception. Today, we see everybody snapping away, and I don't think they realise what a joy it is to have all these photographs. But there's one thing which I think is going wrong today, and that is, what do people do with these photographs? In my day, everybody had albums galore, because obviously if you had a picture taken, you put it in the album, because you're not going to lose it after all that trouble. Today, what do they do? I got very puzzled. I thought, well, what a waste, all these photographs being taken, and what is happening to them? Then of course I discovered Facebook. And of course everybody puts all their pictures on Facebook, so that not only do they see it, but everybody else can see it. So I suppose Facebook has taken the place of the album. But I still think, and I can only recommend it to you, is that you go down to the shops. You can get, if it works in Felixstowe, as you know, is a marvellous place for inexpensive stuff. You can get an album for £2 or £3. Do go along. They've got another lovely little shop where you can have your pictures done nearly opposite Iceland, and you can have all your pictures done and put them into an album. And I can't say they'll be treasured by your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. And I do it, and I know one of the most popular things when people come in to see me is the album. They all grab the album and look at the photographs. So it's a wonderful thing. Photography, I think, is something which has helped us so much. But we don't realise how things have changed and how life has changed. And it's changed so much in the last sort of 40 or 50 years. Because I can recall, vividly, as a child, we didn't have television, no television at all. We had a radio, which was my father's prerogative. He was the only person allowed to turn it on. So what did we do with ourselves? I used to go out with my friend. We used to go onto the common, and we weren't cosseted and had to be accompanied and all the rest of it in those days. We just went, and of course we were able to go there. We used to dam little streams up. We used to do all sorts of things, climb trees, and it was very good for us. And I think that although our youngsters today have got a lot going for them, extra things to do, they miss out on a lot of personal things and self-development, because at the age of 9 or 10, I was very well advanced. I can remember, this was before the Second World War, there was a thing called the soapbox derby. Now it sounds ridiculous, but this is the sort of thing that they used to do. All the youngsters and youth groups and people like that, they had at Brooklands, Brooklands the famous racetrack, they had this soapbox derby, and everybody built soapboxes with wheels, put wheels on them, pedals on them, and there was a derby of it. And I was the person who was elected to drive the car. And it was only because I managed to go out and from a breaker's yard, I managed to get a steering wheel for it. But this was at 9 or 10. I was going out by myself, scrounging steering wheels for things like that. But it was a great tragedy, because we got onto this Brooklands. There we all lined up, and I got into this thing, and of course it wasn't very well made. It had 4 wheels, but then the drive wheel was a 5th wheel in the middle with a pedal on it. And of course the trouble was, when I turned that skidded when I tried to get up speed, and we didn't get anywhere. So I can't honestly say I won at Brooklands, but at least I've driven something at Brooklands, which not many people can say today, which is something. But youngsters, they've got so much opportunity, and it's a good thing, because their sphere of knowledge is expanding. If I wanted to learn anything, I used to go to the library. Now, the libraries in those days was a main feature of living. Everybody went to the library, everybody read. This was what took the place of television. So people would sit at home reading, which they don't do today, and the libraries today are, I understand, they've closed so many of them down, and the ones that are still in use not used to any great extent, which is a great shame. But it just shows you this is how life progresses, and it's a good thing to think about it sometimes. Now, I wanted to talk about other things. I've talked about photography, and it just shows you too, it reminds me of the motivation that's lacking today. If people haven't got money today, they just get onto the benefit people, and I understand you can get up to £20,000 on benefit, which, I mean, this is a reasonable salary, which is a good thing for people who need it, but I think a lot has been lost from the motivation. I go back to the days when, after the war, if you didn't have money, you had to do something to get it. And I can recall, photography, as we're talking about photography, one of my first businesses was photography. There was my wife was, we were living at a place called Seaford on the south coast, and we needed money, like everything else. So what did I do? I thought, well, I must have a new idea, and I thought, if we take a photograph of a hotel and put 4 views around the hotel on the same postcard, the hotels, visitors will buy it. So I duplicated 100 leaflets. Now, even that is interesting, because you wouldn't believe it today. You think duplicate, you just run it off on the printer. Not so in those days. You used to have a duplicator. You turned the handle and, the thing copied it. But I go back even further than that. We used to have a little tray, a metal tray, half an inch thick. It used to be full of gelatine. So you had a little layer of gelatine. Then you got a special piece of carbon paper. So you typed out the thing you wanted to copy. This sounds ridiculous. You laid that onto the jelly and left it there for a minute. You rolled it and you peeled it off, and then you laid another piece of clear paper on the top of that, and a copy went onto that, and you could do 100 copies. Yes. And so this very simple idea of having a picture of a hotel with the 4 views round it, I thought, well, this is smashing. So using my jelly duplicator, I made 100 leaflets. And my wife and I, one night, we went down round Eastbourne and we dropped 100 leaflets into 100 hotels. And from those 100 hotels, so I didn't have any samples to show people, we got 3 replies. So next day I went to these 3 hotels, and of the 3, 2 of them said they'd do it. So I took the photographs, I took the views, I took the samples to them, and both of them had them, and that was the start of this new idea, because up to that date nobody had done anything like that at all. And I'm pleased to say that I built that up, and it brought me in a very good income to help with my family and what have you. And in the end, when I went on to other things, I passed it over to Ilford's. So to my knowledge, it might still be going today, but it just shows you how a simple idea can take you forward and become something worthwhile, like that. This might sound ridiculous to you, but where I learnt to do that was during the war. I was with the meteorological office, and we were bombing, and the Spitfires used to go out, and we used to have to make the forecasts to give to the pilots to take with them. And how did we do it? We duplicated it, as I was saying now, on this bed of jelly. And you can imagine that in the last war, in the last World War, that was how we copied. None of this modern technology. So you don't realise how lucky you are. Now I think I've talked for quite a long time, and so I'm going to finish, and thank you very much for listening, and I hope next week Mike Nimmey will be back with us and we'll be able to have a proper session. Thank you for looking, and have a good day. Goodbye. God bless you.